Hey everyone, welcome to episode 7 of MTG Breakfast with Gathering Magic. I'm your host, Ashlen Rose. This week will be the week for previews for Oath of the Gatewatch. That means daily previews of the cards coming in the new set. Enough about that though, let's go ahead and see what Wedge has for us in the news.
Hey everyone, my name is Wedge and I'll be stepping in for Ashlen this week to talk to you about some MTG news. Now don't worry, you won't have to listen to me for that long since last week was Christmas and Magic-related news wasn't exactly overflowing. Of course, that doesn't mean there's nothing to talk about. Wizards decided to confirm every single one of the expeditions in Oath of the Gatewatch, and Oath spoiler season started yesterday, so we have stuff to talk about. Let's get into it. On Christmas Eve this year, we were gifted with confirmation of all of the expeditions coming in the next set. Among them are lore-based inclusions like Eye of Ugin and Tectonic Edge, accompanied by powerhouse reprints in Wasteland and Horizon Canopy. You can imagine how excited players are going to be after seeing Big Daddy Wasteland getting a reprint here. The money is going to fly or burn, depending on how you look at it. Now there are 16 other expeditions that were announced, but we don't have time to cover them all here. Want the rundown? Check out our extended expedition coverage by clicking this link. I know, so convenient. Without further ado, let's take a look at some sweet spoilers released this week so far. I always love spoiler seasons, they get me so hyped. The battle between the Allies and the Eldrazi is reaching a real tipping point. Both sides are swinging and swinging hard. The first spoiler we're looking at today is Endbringer, 5 of anything and 1 colorless for a 5/5 Eldrazi. Untap it during each other player's untap step. You can tap it to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. You can also pay 1 colorless, tap it, and target creature can't attack or block this turn. You can also pay 2 colorless, tap it, and draw a card. I mean, what am I even looking at? Endbringer is disgusting. It does everything and it untaps on each player's untap step. Wizards must think colorless mana is the downside to playing this, but no, you can bet tons of players are going to pack their decks with a waste and go to town with Endbringer. If you can untap with this, probably game over. It's unreal. Next up is Reckless Bushwhacker, 3 mana for a 2/1 Goblin Warrior ally with haste and surge costing 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield, if its surge cost was paid, other creatures you control get +1/+0 and haste until end of turn. Mono red aggro players, enjoy. You do need to play this creature after another creature in the same turn, but most of your creatures are super cheap, so that isn't going to be a problem. This is certainly standard playable and will definitely be on my radar as something to watch out for. That value. The last spoiler we're talking about today is Jorian Ruin Diver, 1 of anything, 1 blue and 1 red for a 2/3 legendary creature Merfolk Wizard. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, draw a card. Well, there goes the Is It Neighborhood, especially for Commander. First things first, Merfolk Legend, nice. Second, this is going to draw a card every single turn in a Melik deck, Argent deck, Tibor Lumia. So many cards. Remember, you do only get 1 card per turn, but that's still value. Play Jorian and then another spell right after it. Boom, your first card right there. Easy peasy. I hope you enjoyed our quick look at some of the sweet spoilers released for Oath of the Gatewatch. You can expect many more ridiculous cards to be released over the next 2 weeks, so stay tuned to your favorite content creators. We'll all be talking about it. New segment complete.
Hey guys, welcome to the MTG Finance Minute. My name is Jim Kozilek, and I'm here to bring you an update on the world of Magic Finance. In the past week, we talked about the biggest spikes of 2015. Now let's talk about the biggest losers of 2015. 2015 had a ton of overvalued cards. I can't talk about them all in one segment, so let's talk about the biggest offenders this year. Let's start with the first set of the year. Clearly the breakout card everyone thought was coming from Fate Reforged was Soulfire Grandmaster. It gave your instants and sorceries lifelink. That was insane at the time. That $25 pre-order price tag was never seen again, even though it found a home as a 4 of in Standard. Dragons of Turkey was a set that was a real head-scratcher at first. Almost every single card was undervalued, so people just assumed the good ones would be worth a lot more. Did you pre-order a Narset Transcendent? I have some bad news for you. That card wasn't Jace and didn't keep its $50 price tag. Modern Masters 2015 was a set that tried to lower the cost to play Modern. What it ended up doing was introducing a ton of slightly played cards out of the pack and annoying a lot of people. If you ordered a sealed product of this, you likely lost money. Magic Origins has some pretty good cards in it. What wasn't a pretty good card was the 1-mana Planeswalker. Kithian, Hero of Akros, was just another one in a long line of Savannah lands that just didn't make the cut. In this day and age, it's hard to get hyped for a 1-mana 2-power creature because how much blocking goes on in Standard. And then we had Battle for Zendikar. This set was very hyped. Pretty much every card except for Gideon fell through the floor after a month. If you pre-ordered anything from the set, I hope you got the Gideon or lands. Another small note, Zendikar expeditions were also vastly overvalued. Some of the blue fetch lands were still several $100s more than they are now, and they're still several $100s each. The number of played Zendikar expeditions is also a huge miss. I'm hoping the issue is remedied with the Oath of the Gatewatch print quality. Either way, I think Oath of the Gatewatch expeditions are going to be a lot closer to their end price during their pre-order period. Thanks for listening, guys. If you'd like to read more of my content, I write for MTGprice.com every Tuesday. And with that, I leave you the top 5 winners and losers this week, brought to you by MTGprice.com.
Welcome, I'm Dennis from Windmillionaire, the Magic the Gathering game show, and MTG Breakfast has asked me again to test your trivia knowledge. So this week, I want you to tell me which creature type has the highest average power and toughness in all of Magic's history.
Oh, Magic. I love you to the core.
The M14 core set was released in the summer of 2013 and contains 249 cards. The set put the spotlight on Planeswalker Chandra, whose Planeswalker card was actually good for once. Her zero ability made her standard and modern playable, and is an effect that followed suit on red cards in later sets. M14 also revolved around slivers. The casual MTG crowd's most beloved creature type was abundant in this core set, but R&D goofed on a couple things. Mechanically, their hive mind nature was nerfed. No longer did all slivers affect every other sliver on the board, but rather only slivers you control. What really threw players over the edge, though, was their new art style. The humanoid slivers of M14 were simply unacceptable, with players comparing them to the likes of Predator. R&D did not make this mistake again. Speaking of slivers, our rare in this pack is Bone Scythe Sliver, a 2/2 for 3 and a white that reads, Sliver creatures you control have double strike, an excellent creature in Sliver EDH decks, but then again, which card isn't? I actually like this artwork too. And that's the pack. You can find me, the Magic Man Sam, on YouTube and Twitter. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers!
Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckbuilder.com with this week's episode of the MTG Breakfast. Rich from Gathering Magic asked me to talk about my top 3 cards from 2015, and I think instead of talking about my personal favorites of 2015, I'm going to talk about the top 3 cards that I think benefited the most, or the biggest winners of 2015. Now, these were cards that were not printed in 2015, but through Battle for Zendikar, I think that these cards are by far the biggest winners and the most impactful on the modern format that we've seen in a long time. It takes a while before new decks can emerge in modern. It really, a lot of times you have to have a very powerful card be printed out of one of the standard sets to really change the modern metagame. And this time around, it wasn't really a singular card. It was a mechanic called Devoid. Now, Devoid turns all of your Eldrazi cards from Battle for Zendikar into colorless, and the previous Zendikar block printed 2 cards, one of which is Eye of Ugin, which reduces the cost of colorless Eldrazi spells by 2, and the other one is Eldrazi Temple, which can be activated for 2 mana only to cast colorless Eldrazi spells. So in the past, there was some colored Eldrazi spells in the old Zendikar block, and they just couldn't be ramped out by either one of these spells. But come along Devoid, and we have a ton of 3-drops, and in that 3-drop slot was a very, very impactful card called Wasteland Strangler, which, when it entered the battlefield, you could return a card from exile from your opponent's Exile Zone back to their graveyard to give a creature -3/-3. Now, the Wasteland Strangler kills most of the threats in Modern, so it's a very powerful card, and there's a lot of enablers in Modern that can exile cards from your, like Relic of Progenitus, or just exile cards from the top of their library, things like that, that you can use to pair with Wasteland Strangler. But the real winners were, number 1, Eye of Ugin, number 2, the Eldrazi Temple, and number 3, which is really a combination with Eye of Ugin, which is Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. But now when you pair it with Eye of Ugin, where Eye of Ugin can now tap for a black mana, you can generate 3 mana out of your Eye of Ugin. So this means that you can ramp out cards like Oblivion Sower really quickly, or like I said, the Wasteland Strangler can just be ramped out with just an Eye of Ugin. You can save the mana. But I think that we have yet to see how powerful this deck can be. The other card I want to mention is Blightherder. Blightherder is one of those cards that no one... I tried it. I had it in a deck. I had it in a Mardu deck, a Mardu Enchantments deck, and then I replaced it with Gideon because I thought Gideon was just a little more consistent than the Blightherder because it's hard to exile 2 cards. But in Modern, with cards like Relic of Progenitus, the Blightherder is very easy to get 2 cards in the exile zone to have a 4/5 and 3 1/1s. And in Modern, that is very, very powerful. A lot of times it's a 1-for-1 format, and it feels like a Spectral Processions or a Lingering Souls with a 4/5 body. So if you haven't picked up your Eldrazi Temples, your Eye of Ugins, your Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, I highly suggest doing so. I think that they are by far the biggest winners from the 2015 Mechanic Devoid. What do you think was your top 3 winners from the 2015 in the comment section below? This has been Kevin with Deckbuilder.com. Thanks for watching.
Hey guys, welcome to College Judge. My name is Morgan, I'm a level 2, and this week I'll be answering a trio of great questions from viewers. First, Kawi writes, there seems to be some debate over this question at my local store. The card Citadel Siege has a mode that allows you to tap down target creature at the beginning of combat. Can you get around that by activating Shambling Vent after entering combat and then declaring the vent as an attacker? The answer is yes. Combat has 2 parts that are important to you: the begin combat step and the declare attacker step. Citadel Siege triggers at the beginning of your combat, chooses a target, and then you get priority when the ability's on the stack. When you get priority during your beginning of combat, you have the opportunity to activate Shambling Vents. Then, once both players have passed priority, you move to declare attacker step and can attack with your vents. As long as your creature land is a creature before you move into declare attacker step, it can be used as an attacker. Tiago writes, I have a question about the legendary planeswalkers. I declare an attack and someone blocks with Jace Vryn's Prodigy, but before damage step he transforms it. Does my creature get blocked or not? Also, does this apply to anything that can tap? For the first part of the question, your creature is still considered blocked. All that being blocked cares about is whether the creature was declared as a blocker, not whether it is still there when damage happens. However, if the attacking creature has trample and then the blocking creature is removed from combat, it still gets to deal all of its damage. Being tapped does not remove a creature from combat. For the Origins Walkers, transforming removes them from combat because they go from the battlefield to exile. So, if your creature gets blocked by a Merfolk Looter, a creature with the ability tap, draw a card, then discard a card, and its controller activates its ability, the Merfolk Looter will still be blocking, and therefore still take damage and still deal damage. Matthew writes, in Commander, if I cast my general with the additional 2 commander attacks from the command zone, how many 1/1 black thralls will I receive from Endrixar Master Breeder? Endrixar Master Breeder is a creature with the ability, whenever you cast a creature spell, put X 1/1 black thrall creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. When a card refers to converted mana cost, it is only referring to the printed mana cost, rather than what you get for playing the card. So, if your general casts 6 and you paid 8 for the tax, you will still get 6 thralls. The second part of Matthew's question is, if I then sacrifice my general to Food Chain, how much will I add to my mana pool? Food Chain is an enchantment for 3 and a green with exile a creature you control to add X mana of any one color to your mana pool, where X is the exiled creature's converted mana cost plus 1. When you sacrifice your general to Food Chain, even if you've had to pay commander tax, you will get your general's printed mana cost plus 1. That's all for today. Email rules@gatheringmagic.com or leave your question in the comments below if you need to call a judge.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Lore with Ashlen, where we are discussing all the events leading up to Rise of the Eldrazi, all the way to current events in Zendikar. Last we left off, Chandra had successfully casted Ghostfire to take down Sarkhan, who was in dragon form trying to kill her. Chandra contemplated killing Jace while he was knocked out, as he was kind of a thorn in her side, but she decided to let him live. She did wake him up, and they exchanged a few words, resulting in Jace questioning the man who tipped her off about the Dragon Scroll. Jace leaves the Eye and sails to Seagate to report what had happened and to look for answers as to what this could all mean. Sarkhan wakes up sometime after Jace's departure and breaks off a Hedron chip and heads to Bolas's meditation realm to report what he thought was his failure, only to find out it was all part of Nicol Bolas's plan. Sorin, per his agreement with Ugin and Nahiri, returned to Zendikar to reinforce the prison. However, his fellow planeswalkers were nowhere to be found. But nonetheless, he was there, and the Eldrazi brood were free, feasting on Zendikar again. Shortly after arriving on Zendikar, Sorin came across an Eldrazi brood and an enslaved vampire attacking a group of elves. All the elves were killed except for one, a young planeswalker by the name of Nissa. She would have died had it not been for Sorin, who helped dispose of the broodling, as well as free the vampire who was being controlled by it. That vampire's name was Anawan. Since having two planeswalkers to fix the Eye was better than none, Sorin demanded that she and the vampire came with, a decision he would later come to regret. During their travel to the Eye, Nissa slowly began to see Sorin's true nature. He didn't care for her precious Zendikar, or what happened to it, and that didn't sit well with her. You see, Zendikar was Nissa's home. She was one of the last animists. She grew up in tune with the land, listening to its cries as it fought something dark buried deep within the plane. In fact, her planeswalker spark was ignited when she attempted to confront the Titans previously. Although she didn't know what they were at the time, she did know that they were what was causing the land so much pain. And Sorin, he helped trap the monstrosities here. During their journey to the Eye, Nissa contemplated the Eldrazi and their presence on Zendikar and made up her mind. She would save Zendikar. Once they got to the Eye, Sorin attempted to use his magic to repair the Hedron network. However, Nissa interrupted his ritual when she shattered the main Hedron, releasing the enchantment imprisoning the Titans. Sorin tried to talk some sense into her, but she swore that the Eldrazi would leave the plane now that they were free. Sorin, at this point, was completely done. Done with Nissa, done with Zendikar. He left the plane and left her to deal with the destruction of her home. But that's all the time we have for lore this week. Tune in next week to find out what happens next. Now, let's head on over to Commander to see what Adam has for us.
Hey Magic YouTubers, it's the Stibs, coming with another Commander Spotlight. This week we're talking all about the final countdown, the end of the 3-for-3 on the biggest and best that have hit the format in 2015. 2 weeks ago it was Cycles and the cards that kind of fill out our decks. Last week was individually powerful cards, awesome cards that we're going to put in decks. But this week is the coup de grace, the legendary creatures, the commanders themselves that are going to stick around and make their presence known on the format for years to come. At least what I think. This is the most opinionated part. Creatures that matter to you, the commander that stands out to you from this year. It's a very personal thing. We all have different choices and flavors, so sound off in the comments below or send me a tweet on Twitter at @the_Stibs, STYBS. I want to know what you think the list should be, but I'm going to give you mine right now. The first is Nissa, Vastwood Seer. Nissa is awesome. Getting a land and ramping every turn that you can is great in Commander. It's something that I like to do. I think ramping is very powerful because it powers the rest of your deck. It lets you cast your Commander more often in total and in frequency. Repeatable effects are generally good in Commander. And the fact that Nissa transforms into a Planeswalker off of her own ability, being able to get a land and then play the 7th for the turn and flip her over, or the 8th or the 9th, it doesn't matter as long as you have at least the 7 in play, you're good to go. kind of protects her from a lot of wrath effects. So once she transforms, she gives you card advantage by drawing cards and doing cool things with creatures. She can give you a creature. Her ultimate ability is great. It's an unbelievable triumvirate of power. The second creature that I want to talk about is Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. Colorless came back in a big way when Battle for Zendikar hit, and while we're not going to get waste until Oath of the Gatewatch, hooray! Ulamog has inspired a whole new wave of colorless decks. While they're going to be a little bit easier to do once Oath hits the scene, Ulamog is a great card for just awesome, over-the-top, dominant commander power. If you want to exile 2 things, you're going to do it. If they destroy it afterwards, or they counter it, or they do all sorts of other stuff, that's fine. He sits in the graveyard if you want him to, doesn't recycle himself away, so you can put him in Reanimator decks. It's a little bit of combination of flexibility, a little bit of, just kind of exuberance if you love the Eldrazi. Building around a colorless creature like Ulamog just gives you an answer built into the commander. And spending 10 mana, then 12 mana to exile 4 really permanent things, costs a lot. That's a lot of mana round trip, but it's awesome. I love Ulamog for just how big and splashy he is and how he's made everyone think about making colorless commander decks again. The third legendary creature I want to talk about is Tasigur, the Golden Fang. And I think this creature is going to have the biggest impact on commander going forward for years. Tasigur costs 1 black mana. I know that there's other costs in there, and I know there's delve and some text and stuff like that, but basically whenever you cast him, he's going to be free. Just 1 black mana. If you're playing Tasigur's colors, you're in Sultai, and while that kind of limits the decks that Tasigur can go into, Tasigur, I think, is the epitome of what a Sultai deck wants. The ability to take advantage of the graveyard, an activate ability that puts more cards in, the political ramifications of being able to choose opponent A, who gives you the card that you both need to answer player B, is awesome. Whether you're a competitive player that's looking for incremental advantage and angles and way to accelerate the value of things like your graveyard, or you're a political and casual player that just wants a strong commander that's going to give you the benefit you need when he hits the battlefield, Tasigur covers your bases. I love Tasigur. I love what he's brought Sultai to do, and I can't wait to fight another Tasigur deck. It's a lot of fun. It's almost like a puzzle sometimes. But that's just my take. Sound off in the comments below or tweet at me. I want to know what your commanders are. Thanks.
Hey everyone, my name is Wedge, and yeah, I'm pulling double duty on this week's MTG Breakfast. In this episode of MTG History, we're going to talk about a set of cards meant to bring holiday joy to everyone. Except, of course, for those players who never get to own this set of cards, so basically most players. Well, that took a turn. We're talking holiday promos. Has Christmas already passed? Yes. Does that mean we can't be in a festive mood? No, it doesn't. I hope you enjoy. Beginning in 2006, Wizards of the Coast prints a parody Magic card every holiday season. This promotional card is usually a play on an already existing card or card type. You can't buy them in any local game store, and they don't come in any pre-constructed deck or booster pack. The only way you can get one, at least initially, is if Wizards deems you worthy. They send them as gifts to their employees, outside contractors, and business partners as a way to say thank you for basically being the best. It all began with Fruitcake Elemental, the first holiday promo card, a hilarious creature that beat anyone who controlled it, much like Fruitcake itself. Yuck. As the years went on, Wizards was able to cover each color and a load of card types. One of my personal favorites is Snow Mercy from 2010. You actually have to shake it to tap all creatures with globe counters on them. Seriously, you tap, untap, tap, untap, tap. It's so immersive. I love it. The past 2 years have been especially exciting for those lucky enough to receive a promo card. Last year's gift was Mishra's Toy Workshop, obviously a play on Mishra's Workshop, one of the most iconic lands in Magic. That combined with beautiful art makes this a $45 card. This year's promo, Goblin Sleigh Ride. I must say, super jealous of anyone who owns one of these. What fun is it to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight indeed. While only the best people in the world get the holiday promos initially, a limited amount do find their way to the open market, but fair warning, these fetch a pretty penny. If you want Yule Ooze from 2011, you have to drop around $40. That isn't terrible. If you want Gifts Given from 2007, yeah, be ready to chuck a solid $150 at it. I know, players are serious about their holiday promos. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this look at Wizards' holiday promo card series. Next week, we'll be back with a more conventional episode. If there are any cards you want us to talk about specifically, be sure to leave a comment and let us know. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Hello friends, and welcome back to another edition of Numot's Tips and Tricks with me, the tank top wearing, new magic tattoo inspired Numot The Nummy. This week we're going to go over my very top draft formats of the 2015 year. I'm actually going to go over both paper and MTGO, so prepare your bodies. Here we go. Let's start with best paper draft format for 2015. Now we had a few new sets released, Fate Reforged, Dragons of Tarkir, and Battle of Zendikar. Despite what you may have believed based on my stream, if you have been able to catch that, I think Battle for Zendikar was the best format to draft in paper. So many fun new cards and styles, getting to play with new and exciting Eldrazi really put it at the top of the list for me. Now granted, as I've come to draft the format over 200 times or so, it's lost some of its luster and appeal, but I still think it was the very best of 2015. It's something that, I will still draft occasionally, and you guys can still draft it at your local F&Ms, online, anywhere. As far as MTGO is concerned, MTGO, the capability to draft other exciting formats presents itself, and easily the best format in my opinion was the Vintage, or what is known as Holiday Cube. This is the format that is currently on Magic Online, and you get to play with some of the most powerful cards ever printed, all in a draftable cube format. The subtleties of interactions, but more importantly, the power of those cards makes for a very interesting format, one that I could draft over and over, and I have actually drafted it over and over. If you can think of an archetype in Magic, this cube probably has it, and with all 9 pieces of power, you're sure to get the most bang for your buck. Now, hopefully you had a chance to draft these formats, but even if you haven't, there's still time. You can draft Battle for Zendikar, in paper and online, and you can draft the cube online currently. So these formats are waiting for you. If you have the chance, I would highly recommend at least trying them once or twice. Thanks for tuning in this week's edition of Numot's Tips and Tricks. Don't forget to follow me on all of the social media at Numot The Nummy, and check out my stream on Twitch if you have a chance to. Take it easy, guys, and we'll see you back next time.
Earlier on in the show, I asked you which creature type has the highest average power and toughness across Magic's history, and the answer is Dreadnought. There's only one card that's typed Dreadnought, and that's Phyrexian Dreadnought, so the question's a little bit unfair. If you want to look at more trivia, head on over to youtube.com/WindmillslamMTG to check out our game show, Windmillionaire.
All right, that wraps up episode 7 of MTG Breakfast. Don't forget to let us know what you like, what you love, what you want to see more of. And let's give a big shout out to all the contributors this week. Thank you guys. And everyone, have a happy, happy new year. And with that in mind, we'll see you next year.